Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Nerds MC podcast. Tonight I'm joined once again by my good friend Cody Moss. Cody.
Hey, happy to be here, and it's been a pretty good weekend so far, so let's go ahead and have some great fun talking.
Nice. So tonight we have a few topics. We're going to be talking about music and the death of the Xbox 360. Which one you want to kick us off with?
Well, let's go ahead and start on top of the death of the Xbox 360, because that is it's hitting hard, man.
Yeah, that is like legitimately the end of an era, end of my childhood. It honestly kind of stings. It's melancholy. You think back to the days of gaming, and it was simpler back then, man. That was the console that gave us Halo 3, Gears of War, Crackdown. It was back when Microsoft was actually good.
Well, I can't comment on Microsoft actually being good or not. But what I can actually say is it's what's weird about this is we also recently just lost the PS3 store, the PSP and PS Vita store as well as along with that. But it's the reason why I think it hits so differently is all the consoles before that point, like the only way you could play them was with a disc or a cartridge. But it's so this is a new feeling because have a lot of fond memories with the Xbox 360. Like I remember playing Gears of War. I played through the whole Gears of War trilogy. Well, actually, I can't say whole anymore because there's like a 4 and a 5 now. But I played through the first 3 on that console. So it's for it to be gone now, or well, as of time of recording, this is the last day the store is going to be online. It's a weird feeling. Like, I don't know how else to put it in words.
I mean, the Xbox 360 was legitimately like a defining force for gaming in my childhood. I have two stories that I think perfectly encapsulate the Xbox, perfectly encapsulate, that ecosystem. So the first one I'm going to open with was my last experience realistically with the 360, and that was Halo 4. This console let me hang out all night with my then girlfriend, now wife, my best friends growing up. We hung out at GameStop, got the midnight release of Halo 4, went home, and played it, start to finish, legendary together campaign, and we knocked it out and had a grand old time. Multiplayer was great. Like that was a excellent last hurrah for me on the Xbox 360. Ancillary to that, the very first experience I ever had with the Xbox 360 was Fear on Xbox Live. Now, for those of you that know what Fear is, First Encounter Assault Recon is probably one of the best shooters ever released, and I will fight anyone who disagrees. I was ranked top 5 at one point playing that game. There was only like 3 or 4 other people in the entirety of the game online that could whoop my ass, and other than that, I mopped the floor with people. And I was like 12. So, this is like Squeaker Rob hanging out, playing Xbox, playing Fear. And I had a gentleman who was inebriated that night, also playing Fear, threaten to find my house, freeze his shit, and then me with it. And that was my first ever experience with Xbox Live and, being one of the big kids and having that little ditty thrown at me. So that's like the duality of Xbox. Part of you gets threatened or get with a frozen, and then the other half of you plays Halo 4 all night with your bros. Like that is Xbox in a nutshell.
Well, you and I apparently have very different memories. I think it's mostly because even when I did play online, I did not do voice chat. Like that's just kind of always been my thing. That's like the first thing I turn off is voice chat. I don't play really competitive shooters with other people, so I never had things like that. But I've heard the stories. I've also seen Twitch streamers and whatnot go and have like those kind of conversations. But it's at least on the Xbox 360, like I remember a lot of the like single player stuff or even like the couch co-op stuff. Even though like the couch co-op stuff, it was more rare for me in my case because my friends and I we were one of those sets of people that would bring over like all the consoles to someone's house with a bunch of TVs, and we would just play off the same router. Of course, Xbox Live being the big thing because like I recall playing Halo 3 on Xbox Live. I also recall playing like Gears of War 1, 2, and 3 on multiplayer. Though, man, sometimes like those lobbies, they'd get real sweaty real quick. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, I mean it's like that's the part that's like kind of hitting home with the whole Xbox 360 storefront is being shut down because like Gears 1, 2 I had like as discs. Gears 3 I bought on the eShop.
Really?
I never had a disc for it. I just played it off of the storefront.
Interesting.
So
Dude, I bought all my games on disc back then.
well, it was what do you call it? Around that time it was easier to buy the Xbox points and buy the arcade games or the full games and just download them. Because like this is around the time that I think I could be wrong, I could be mistaken, but I also know I didn't get Gears 3 on launch, so this might have been a year or so later. But I had like the slim version of the Xbox 360 because the first Xbox 360, I remember it had like the Red Ring of Death issue. And, my dad and I, we tried everything from like the towel method to taping pennies together and replacing them with the thermal pads and stuff like that. Like, it's kind of hard to talk about the 360 and not talk about the Red Ring of Death. But, we kept getting new ones basically because like every time it burned out, my dad would, kind of like go out and find another one somehow, either through Craigslist or GameStop pre-owned or whatnot, any way to make it cheaper because no way in hell we were buying new consoles that often. But when those Slims came out, man, that problem went away. I don't know what magic they did, but I know that like the Slim one, we never had a problem with it again.
Yep. So it's funny. You talk about like what is ultimately like a mainstream AAA release, and like that is what you're remembering buying on the storefront. So I think like the biggest travesty to me is going to be the loss of all the Xbox Live Arcade titles. So I'm not sure if you grew up playing those, but think like Bastion, Braid, The Dishwasher, which that is an amazing game if you haven't played it. If you like side-scrolling beat 'em ups, that is top tier. Outpost Kaliki, which I don't know if again you played that one or not, but like that was a big part of me growing up was playing Outpost Kaliki, which was really cool. It was like a civilization builder, but you ran space stations. Coming off of that, you've got Small Arms, which it's not Smash Bros, but it's a lot of fun. It's very similar in that vein. So like to see all those titles that were made in like XNA, so literally only on the Xbox because XNA ran nowhere else, that's ultimately going to be lost to time, which is a damn shame.
I could be mistaken, but I do believe some of those arcade titles have been like that. That's the other thing that's about this Xbox 360 shutdown is it's not just like a shutdown. It's only a shutdown of purchasing. You will still be able to download these things for the time being. Don't know how long that'll be around. But like the other part to it is the Xbox Series X and the Xbox One, they have like backwards compatibility on those Xbox 360s. So like even tonight, like if you're buying Xbox 360 games on the 360 store, some of them actually like have the label that says, "Hey, this will also grant you the Xbox One version."
Yeah.
And it's I don't know about the arcade ones, but I know a decent chunk of this content is going over. Now, not everything. There's going to be like some indie titles or games that were kind of like cult classics that don't have like a big enough player base for them to have been ported, that or maybe the developers never came back to work on that. But there still is a decent chunk that you will still be able to play on the newer consoles.
Yeah, like if you own them on your account, for sure, you're good moving forward. I will say Xbox was good about that. The only one that I haven't been able to like purchase and hold on my account would be the dishwasher, ironically, which is probably one of the best games. I don't know. It's just it's a very odd, surreal feeling because again, that same platform delivered us like Aegis Wing and Castle Crashers and Alien Hominid. So, some of those are going to live on, but like some of those are like groundbreaking titles. Like I'm not sure if you remember Castle Crashers or Alien Hominid, but that was a Newgrounds title that was like ported into like big boy consoles. It proved that indie gaming realistically could live on a home console because it was before then basically relegated to PC. I don't know if relegated is the right word, but it opened up a massive market for a number of developers that otherwise would not have been able to get into people's homes. And I find that, honestly, it's like if you take a step back, like we're talking about the death of the Xbox 360 store, but there's a wider conversation to be had around Xbox in general and like the legacy they're leaving because ultimately they brought indie gaming into the mainstream if you think about it. Like I don't know about you, but a lot of the hallmark titles that I remember and really enjoyed came from the arcade system on the 360.
I did have like a decent amount of like arcade experience, but around the time that like I remember like that becoming like a bigger thing, I was already a PC gamer. So
Yeah.
like when you said Castle Crashers, I had no idea that was on 360. I just know that I have it on Steam and I can play it on Steam and I still do from time to time. Though I think it's been like 7 years since I last booted it up. But it still is, it's one of those things that like a lot of the indie titles, like you mentioned, were like kind of like PC based until like the Xbox 360 had like that arcade system. That's what exposed a lot of people to indie titles, at least on a console level.
I mean, I'd argue is part of the reason why they became popular. You didn't really have large scale success stories like I mean, honestly, the biggest one that comes to mind from that area is Braid. Like, Jonathan Blow, love him or hate him, he made a really, really good game that had massive hype and like it defined an era of gaming. I want to say that was 2008. I can't think of another title that did what Braid did for the wider industry. And it's crazy to think it would not have been possible without the 360 and what Microsoft did. It really is.
Yeah. Though, if you want to follow more on Braid, there is a movie that is purchasable in places. I actually think it might be uploaded for free now, up on YouTube. I could be mistaken, but it's called like Indie Game the Movie, and it follows the developers behind The Binding of Isaac, Braid, and also Fez, like through the development life cycle of them making their games all the way up through release. So you can kind of see what it's like to be, at least, you know, the parts that they did capture on film, be an indie game developer.
Yeah, man. Fuck, that's like a whole other thing with like Fez, Super Meat Boy, like that. Again, it's that same thing to where that whole era of developers came out of Newgrounds and arcade, which is wild. Cause like again, I don't know if you played Super Meat Boy back in the day, but that is probably like to this day one of my favorite platformers. It's just really really good. Same with Fez. It's crazy. It really is.
Yeah, Super Meat Boy is pretty good. I have played it, except for I've only made it through like the first world and a half. I am not
Okay.
Giga Chad enough to make it further than that, because that's usually when I start to like get a little too frustrated, and I'm like, I don't want to ever see a game in a bad light. So if I start seeing myself kind of resent it, I just stop playing it, because like clearly I had fun up until that point.
Fair enough.
But it's the other one you brought up, I can't recall really. Well, actually, correction, Fez. Yeah, I played it a bit. I thought it was a very interesting game, but it wasn't interesting enough to keep my attention. Now, I might just not be the target audience, or well, I guess indie game. It probably was. It was aiming for everyone, because that's kind of like the target you kind of have to hit is you aim for the sky and see where you land.
Yeah.
I'm just not one of the people that were built to enjoy that game.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I think I say this all the time, but like if you're not the target demographic, you're not. But I think it's important to realize the impact Fez had, because that was like a really interesting take on platforming in that time. And I mean, you know, you can say the same thing about Braid and Meat Boy. Like they each had different spins on what was really a classic genre. And yeah. I mean, all this is to say, like, we're talking about literal, like, cult classics, or not even cult classics, like bona fide classics. And they none of these would have been nearly as popular as they are without the Xbox Live Arcade. Do I think Jonathan Blow would have still been the based unit of a programmer that he thinks he is? Probably. Do I think that Edmund McMillan would have continued to make The Binding of Isaac? Absolutely. You can look at his wider body of work and just see, you know, the talent there. I don't think anyone's gonna take that away. But do I also think that the Xbox Live Arcade and the accessibility of these titles helped catapult them into the main zeitgeist? Absolutely. And to see that legacy die, or I guess be sunsetted, because you know it's not necessarily dead, but to see it no longer hold the place it once did is just it's melancholic for sure.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's like I said, it's, you know, like this is like a way that I played a lot of my games. Like, this is one of the things I don't know if it ever got ported. I kind of hope it did in a way. Maybe it did. I haven't kept up with Xbox in a while, but it's like a lot of those Connect titles. I know
Ah,
the Connect is a touchy subject because it depends who you talk to, but some people loved it or some people hated it. And I'm one of those people that I would definitely say I leaned more towards love it, but it's because, like, you know, like the dancing games. Like, I vividly
yeah.
remember the Star Wars dancing game that was like part of like Star Wars Connect. And like my sister-in-law and I were like basically playing that all night one night.
Nice. Yeah, I will say I do not have the same fondness for the Kinect. So this was years ago. I want to say it was like the year before the Xbox One came out. The original, you know, giant black obelisk came out. My dad and I were doing Black Friday shopping at GameStop, and they were giving Kinects away at basically $10 for the 360. So, you're hanging out, you're like, well, it's $10. Pick one up, take it home. It was really, really cool from like a tech demo perspective, but the thing did not work consistently at all. And it was almost relegated because of it. Like, I remember we picked up a couple of cheap Kinect games. We couldn't play them because it didn't work well in our lighting in our home. So, like, I don't even remember what they are because they just didn't work. But I do remember being really impressed with the motion tracking for like manipulating the GUI, being able to do like baseline communication with it. It was really a neat concept, and I do see what they were going for with refinements onto it for the Xbox One, which that's a conversation for another time. But, just to kind of put a pin in that, I think it is disappointing to see how now in the modern day we are looking for that media hub system. And the Xbox One was trying to be that. It integrated with everything. But again, not a conversation for this time. All that is to say is for those of you that don't have fond memories of the Kinect, know I'm with you.
I will say it was a very niche thing. Like, it wasn't like something that I would say it was a must-have, but if you had enough disposable income, it was definitely worth getting just to experience it at least once.
Yeah. No, that is 110% sure. Like I said, really awesome tech demo. And it's just unfortunate they stopped developing that technology.
Yeah, well, I think in a way it more shifted because like you saw like the Microsoft Holo now. Like I would not be surprised if some of like the learnings from the Kinect did not play into that augmentation, like the augmented reality headset.
No, that's a good point. Like all that spatial tracking tech would go into that.
Yeah. I just think that they got better sensors or maybe had learned how to track better because like when you see like the Microsoft Holo demo videos, like they are pretty good. Like they're pretty next level. Now how much of that's like edited to just be like the best case scenarios, I don't know. But I also have not gotten my hands on a Microsoft Holo yet. I believe they're out. I could be wrong. That or they might only be out for like select individuals or certain enterprises.
Gotcha.
Kind of like how Google did their Google Lens, the Google Glasses.
Yeah. And then Google Glass Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
God, such a weird time in technology. Such a weird time in technology.
Yeah, but at least the augmented reality stuff is still kind of going on, and you also have what do you call it? VR is coming up. Now, I don't think VR is going to be one of those things that's going to be for like everyone in every home, but I do see it like having its place in the world, at least in places.
Yeah.
But we can touch on that on another day.
Yeah, let's get into all that later because I think there's like the business and consumer side of things, and those are very different markets. All that being said, I think I've kind of said my piece on the Xbox. It's legitimately the end of an era, and I feel like inadvertently, like the Xbox 360, for all of its faults, birthed the modern indie scene, which is absolutely bananas to think about, but here we are.
Yeah.
Cody, you got anything else you want to touch on?
Just it's a weird time. It's a weird time because it's like I said earlier, this is the first storefront I can recall using that's now gonna be gone.
It's all gone. I remember the PSP storefront. It was a storefront. That's another conversation.
What I will touch on for the PSP storefront is I did not know it had a storefront until I was an adult.
Yeah, that all that needs to be said. All that needs to be said. So, I think another thing we kind of wanted to talk about tonight was like music. You want to dive into that one?
Sure. Well, I mean, music is a very broad topic, broad, like, experience. So I guess I'm gonna kind of like narrow it down to, kind of like how it evolved and like how I grew up with it and whatnot. So, and I guess we can kind of take it from there. But it's
All right.
music has always been a part of my life, like a really big part. Like every day when I work, uh, I work with headphones and I'm listening to music probably a good 90% of the time. Sometimes I get away with like having like a really mundane task and can listen to an audiobook or to a podcast instead. But if it's, something I'm actually having to actively think on and work on, it's easier to have music in the background. But
Yeah.
at least like when I was growing up, my parents, like not talking ill of them. Like I see their point because like you are a parent as well, so you'll probably see where they were coming from. But there was like a good chunk of time that they were like, only if it came from the Christian bookstore could we listen to it or have
Oh,
it.
jeez.
So our entire house, like everything was like either gospel music or rock music that was basically gospel. Like, like I listened to things like Skillet in their very early days when they were very Christian. I believe they are still a Christian band, but it's not as in your face anymore. But yeah, that's just kind of how it was until like we also had internet. And I remember LimeWire, like, again, we don't condone piracy. Don't do it. But when I was a kid, I was broke, didn't have a lot of money, but wanted to listen to a lot of music, especially because like my parents hooked me up with like an MP3 player pretty early in life. Because well, at least some of those MP3 players, like they were like my first one, if I remember correctly, had 512 megabytes, and it came from an FYI, and I discovered LimeWire because I wanted to put more music on it, and like that's how I found a lot of the music that I still listen to today, like Linkin Park, Hurt, and 3 Days Grace, and a lot of good shit there, man.
Oh yeah. I mean, so let me take you back to young Rob. I have consistently enjoyed music for literally most of my life. I grew up with a Discman that turned into bad MP3 players. I think everyone went through those. I think the first time I got seriously into like listening to music consistently was whenever I was a freshman in high school, and this was, the full swing of portable media players. iPods were out for a bit. The year was 2009, and fun fact, high school freshmen steal things from their family, specifically their siblings. Well, my friend at the time decided it was a good idea to steal his sister's fourth gen classic iPod. So it's the white and gray with the chrome backplate with the dot matrix screen, and he sold it to me for a whopping $30. That was probably the single best $30 I ever spent, because it gave me 20 gigabytes of space to just load it with every song I could possibly want. And much to Cody's point, piracy bad, but LimeWire based, and the volume of things you were able to find and listen to. And it's just stuff that, my dad introduced me to. And then I'd fall down the Wikipedia rabbit hole tracing these musicians. And then I'd come up with all these other bands. And, I'd get that stuff. And I'd get more and more and more until eventually I'm sitting on this library that's, tens of thousands of songs loaded onto this device that I can take with me in my pocket and listen to all the time. I credit that with me becoming like a hardcore musician. I credit that with, exposing me to different facets of technology that I otherwise would not have been aware of. Like my first forum experience was ultimately like a music sharing forum where we all like discussed albums, discussed songs, discussed new artists to get into. I wouldn't have had that without music. So like unironically, I feel like for the most part, it built the foundations I stand on today as a person, both as a technologist and as a musician. It's crazy.
Yeah, so that's one of those things where it's like I have listened to music a very long time. Um like as far back as I can recall. But like I remember growing up, like my mom put me in piano classes, and it's like, I learned the basics on how to play piano, but it never stuck.
Yeah.
Guitar, same thing. What's funny is oh god, like I hadn't played a guitar in probably, like at the point it was like 6 or 7 years. But my mom had mentioned that I was learning guitar, and we went over to one of her friends' houses, and he had a bass guitar, and he hands me the bass, and like I plucked a few strings and like did some riffs and stuff like that, and he was like, "You're pretty good, but I don't see it that way because I've never written a song. I've never really even played songs that exist out there other than Little Drummer Boy on the guitar. And that's about it. I don't know why, but I just struggle with the idea of making music. Like, I am definitely somebody who listens, but when it comes to making, that is a whole, like, another level that I just can't seem to get to.
I mean, you're still a musician though. Like if you can play an instrument, you are a musician. I can tell you I'm like by no means the most creative person, and I don't think anyone would claim I am, but you know, uh, being able to play something and feel the rhythm and kind of instill that in someone, like even if it wasn't anything crazy, you still you conveyed something to that dude with that bass. Like it may was it like groundbreaking, revelacious? I don't know. Maybe you played the best thing ever, and it's lost to time, but it still had an impact on people, and like that matters. That means something.
Yeah. Though I gotta say, something that is very inspiring, especially lately, I've been listening to a band called Polyphia. And they have a guitarist on their band. I actually am not sure if like he's like the lead or not, but it's like Tim Hansen, I believe. Like I'm trying to recall his name from memory. But his guitar skills are out of this world. Like he does like YouTube videos and stuff, and you can just see the way his fingers move, and I'm like, mesmerizing. I swear I can speak.
Nice. I mean, that is fucking dope. I feel like I I've kind of gone for like a more soulful route in music. So like whenever I was younger, I was very much into like the technical metal, technical guitar playing. So like your Steve Vai's, your Joe Satriani's, Dave Mustaine, your Slipknots. As I've gotten older, I've looked for like showmanship almost. So it's changed what I look for. So like whereas before I was strictly like, Megadeth, Metallica, Pantera, your Jimi Hendrixes, your Led Zeppelins. I've kind of expanded as I've gotten older. And, you look at, someone like Danny Brown and like the musical nature of his albums and the showmanship that goes along with it is insane. And then you kind of look at to like, you know, say Ghost is another band that's like very much the show and how it kind of invigorates the experience. Like there's a lot to be said for that. Like modern musicians that kind of embody some of this stuff are like Rival Sons. They put on an absolutely incredible show regardless of, your take on their music. And you've insulted me for this band in the past, but that's okay. I'll let it slide. Like if you ever get a chance to see them, Falls are incredible. Giannis puts on an absolutely amazing show. And I've seen him like 4 times in different incantations of the band. Every one of them was good. Deftones, Chino Moreno is an absolute god, and I don't think anyone can ever take that away from him. So, if you get the chance, see Deftones. And even, throwing it back to older stuff, there's like so many good musicians throughout the years that don't get the respect they do. And whether you're listening to Kix, who that old man probably 6-7 years ago could still fucking sing, he was still really good, to The Fix, same thing, they sound incredible. Like the showmanship and consistency have like grown on me in importance as I've gotten older. And I find that the duration of doing the music makes the music itself better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I could kind of see that.
Yeah.
But
I rambled there. I apologize.
yeah. Though I will say, like, it's hard for me to kind of get excited for concerts these days. Mostly because, like, you're always standing for hours on end. And it's usually in a hot, sweaty room with a bunch of people. And don't get me wrong, I love the atmosphere, and I still go to concerts. But then there's also the fact is I listen to so many different like parts of music that will never be at a show. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot, like one of my favorite artists on Spotify, if like you looked up my profile, you'd see it's like one of the most highly listened to ones, is the artist is called Two Steps from Hell, and they make basically like epic style, like not classical, but what would it be? Like it's usually done with like a group of people. I'm trying to remember what that's called. Because, like it's like violins and flutes and stuff like
orchestral?
that. Yeah, orchestral. And, like they go on like what would be like what you would hear in movie trailers and things like that. It's just like very epic music.
Nice. I'm surprised you haven't brought up Demon Hunter. That was like your jam back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, Demon Hunter's still in my playlists. Like, I still listen to them from time to time. Actually, I think I listened to them just last week. But it's one of those things where it's, they are in my rotation. I listen to them a lot. But it's a lot of the music I listen to, I don't much think about it as much as I just kind of sit there and feel it. Because a lot of times, like, I use, like, Spotify's DJ tool, which is an AI-based playlist generator. Like, I'm pretty sure it's doing some more magic in the background because it knows, like, hey, like, I'm going to play some of the stuff you listened to a little while ago, or it'll go back in time and be like, we're going to try something that you haven't listened to in probably a few years. And it's like, whoa. So, like a lot of times, like I'm just kind of jamming out. I'm not even looking at it. So it was like, my wife and I, we went to a concert last year, for, who was it? It was, I believe it was Starset. And one of the opening bands was, I could see like the image of their album in my head, but I'm having trouble recalling it. I think it's Smash Into Pieces. Yeah, that's them. Dude has like this huge helmet. He's the drummer, and when they started playing their music, I was like, wait, I think I know this band. And then like
The DJ hooked you up.
yeah, it did. And like like I do, like when I do hear things that I really like, I'll go and I'll press like the save it button, so that way it shows up in my liked songs playlist, which I think now is like almost 1,000 songs strong.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Well, it's like if I don't want to listen to DJ, I'll go listen to my liked songs, and I just put it on Smart Shuffle so it doesn't put like two back to back.
Gotcha.
But yeah, like it's, I had no idea that the band we were seeing was a band I had listened to quite a bit until like I started hearing the lyrics, and I was like, wait, I know this song.
It's funny how that works, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, similar experience. I think the weirdest stuff for me is when I go to a show and I buy the ticket for the main event and enjoy the show for the opener. So, the example I always pull is Clutch. I bought tickets to go see Clutch on Psychic Warfare Tour, and I'm in the venue, and, I'm hanging out, and the opening act comes on. The first opener, they get the crowd going. The second opener turns out to be Zakk Wylde with his Black Sabbath cover band. He absolutely burns the house down to the point that at one point during the show, Zakk Wylde is down in the mosh pit 3 feet away from me, ripping on the guitar, going nuts. And me and the guy that I'm looking at like, holy crap, is this actually happening? And he's like, fuck yeah, it is, man. And we like watch Zakk Wylde like 3 feet away from us just ripping on the guitar for a solid 5 minutes. Dude gets back up there onto the stage, fucking finishes the set, just absolutely slays it. I'm spent at this point. I just fucking leave because like nothing's gonna top that for me. So, you buy the ticket for Clutch and you leave because Zakk Wylde happened to sneak onto the docket and just absolutely tear it up. That is how it be sometimes. All that is to say, music is wild. Music is great. Live concerts are dope. Now that I've gotten older, they don't go near as well as they used to whenever I was younger, because I either get bored, tired, or the opener kills it, and nothing's going to top that.
Though I will say something that I was kind of happy to see come back, but I am now also regretting it's coming back. At least here in Vegas. Like other places in America might be different. But it was one of the music festivals.
Nice.
And, I was pumped for the When We Were Young one. Like, my wife and I, we got tickets. Her cousin and her sister, my sister-in-law, her sister, flew in. We all went. And, but a good chunk of the day, because, this was late May when it happened, and we were already starting to get hot. I remember a good chunk of the day we kind of just sat there under the mist fans and didn't actually go see any of the bands other than when they were ones we really wanted to see, so we kind of just sat there all day and then went, oh well, the next round of bands is up. And I remember it was also that night we got really cold. Because, sometimes our temperatures here are a little all over the place, where when we're shifting from, spring to summer, the days will be hot, but the nights will be cold. And it was one of those, and, we met up with my wife's cousin and her sister, and we were like, okay, do you, how are you guys feeling? You all good? Because they really wanted to see My Chemical Romance, and then they were kind of well, if you want to go, And then we were like, yeah, we were going to kind of ask you if you wanted to go because you look like you're freezing to death. It's just one of those things where it's like, we have the T-Mobile Arena, and we also have that now, the Sphere. And if I remember correctly, they both were like advertising that they could run simultaneous shows at the same time without like noise bleed. Why are those not where we're holding the festivals instead of like MGM Park, which, you know, normally is not a bad like area to have it. It's a very nice wide open space, but it's very exposed to the elements considering the fact is it's an outdoor venue. So during the summer, like the last music festival, if I remember correctly, they were going to take place in like June.
Oh God.
And I'm like, people are going to die.
No, see, here's the thing, Cody. We're just old. We don't get it. It doesn't make sense. And
give me an indoor venue, I would go every day of the week.
Stand out in the fucking sun. What's that?
If it was an indoor venue, I would go any day of the week. The moment you make it outdoor, yes. I'm like the guy who's busting open the weather app for like that day and being like, well, what's it gonna be?
Yeah. Well, I mean, though, here's the thing. Like, whenever I was, 20, like 20, doesn't fucking matter. Outside, inside, I'm there. Now, yeah, oh, did I sleep good? Oh man, do I want to drive that 40 minutes? Do I want to stand in line? There's a lot more that goes into it now, convincing me to go like do a concert. It's got to be something special.
Okay. Also, for anyone who might be coming to town, giving you a power move because Rob brought up driving. The power move, park at the furthest casino from your event, take the monorail.
Yeah.
You will thank me later.
Well, take the monorail and stay in the casinos to get to where you are going.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's not that hard to do anymore. I'm not sure when the last time you were down at the Strip, but it's hard to be outside. Like, not just due to the heat,
really?
but just the fact is the buildings are so interconnected, and some of the sidewalks have just been overtaken by the building. So you have to, like, go in through the doors, walk through the buildings, and, like, some of them are just so connected. Like, follow the signs for Las Vegas Boulevard. Because if not, you're going to get lost, wow. And I think that's on purpose.
Yeah, probably.
But
I'm not going to lie. I have not been to the Strip in any meaningful capacity in years. It's like I have no frame of reference.
My wife and I, we tend to go only when there's like an event we want to see. Or if it's our anniversary, we'll sometimes do like one of the really fancy dinner places down there. Like one of our favorite places to go is a place called Yardbird. It's in the Venetian. And
nice.
The reason why we go there is because they have gluten-free fried chicken. And my wife is, as you probably are aware, is allergic to wheat.
Yeah.
So gluten-free is a win.
Well, I mean, fried chicken in general is a win. Like, it's, fried chicken is one of those things that even bad fried chicken is still pretty good. So you can't really go wrong. As long as it's not going to hurt you. Like an allergy to wheat makes it not great. But, if you have an alternative.
Yeah. But also, kind of circling back on the whole music thing, we also jam out to the music at Yardbird quite a bit because they, like, it's not like, blasting. It still is a dinner, but the music there tends to be like a very, very Southern style, kind of like new modern country. It's kind of weird, but I also really dig it.
Okay. Nice. Well, all right. Cody, you got anything else you want to cover, man?
I know this is gonna sound weird, but the music in games is pretty
Okay.
phenomenal, especially in the Final Fantasy series. If you ever get a chance, there's a tour that goes around, and no, they are not paying for this advertising. We are not sponsored by them in any form or way, but I really love what they do. There's a tour called Distant Worlds, and they do a tour here in America every once in a while. It might be yearly now, but I know I just saw an ad for it recently, and hell, even I'm thinking about going to LA or maybe Texas to catch one of the shows because it is very powerful music. It holds a lot of
Okay.
emotion, especially for me who's played the games. Like, I've played almost every Final Fantasy game.
Nice. So do they just like take game catalogs and then just play like the OSTs back to back?
um, it's a more curated show than that, and it's also like they tie it up with like
Okay.
a video that's playing. Um, like I've gone twice now to see it, and it wasn't the same experience twice, especially because like new Final Fantasy games had come out and they had intertwined like the music. Like I think it was the Final Fantasy VII remake had just come out, and like they reused a lot of the original music, of course, high res, but they also did make some new music for those games, or well, for the remake. And I
Nice.
remember that they did play some of that there, and it's like they'll kind of go through. It's not like Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3, blah blah blah. It's kind of like they'll play like a little bit of Final Fantasy 7, then it might mix into like 9 and then go into 12. Like they're just kind of like it's a whole seamless flow, and it's a really good show. And I've enjoyed it each time I've gone, and every time I see the advertisement, I definitely make a concerted effort to go again.
That is dope, actually. I wish I could catch more of those because, like, there are certain soundtracks that are just like immaculate, and I think like are just objectively good. Obviously, I'm biased, but the soundtrack to like Nights into Dreams, Sonic Adventure, a lot of like the Streets of Rage games. It's truly like great music. Like the people that made that stuff are insanely talented, and I know that there have been a few tours kind of covering some of like those compositions, and I've always missed them mainly because whenever they were going on, I was younger or I didn't have the money. So like to hear that there's still not those shows, but shows that kind of encapsulate the same feel, that honestly sounds like a really dope time. I'll have to keep my eye out for that as well.
Yeah, sadly, they don't tend to come to Vegas too often. Like, there's a couple times they've come here, but if you're willing to travel, they definitely do hit LA and Phoenix quite a bit. Both those are, decent drives. Like, yeah, I think you could get the Los Angeles in like 8 hours, and also Phoenix is also about 8 hours away. So, if you're willing to do some driving or fly, you could definitely catch one of these shows, especially because like one of the things my wife and I like to do is we like to like travel to like Dallas to catch them
Oh,
there
nice.
too. Mostly because like they usually get a much bigger venue. Because like Texas has like a lot of auditoriums. Some are really out in the sticks. But the fact is that they just get like these larger auditoriums, and you can see that they put like a lot of work into like the decorations and the whole flow. It's an experience, definitely.
Nice. That's dope, man.
Well, that was my shout out. Rob, you got anything?
I mean, just to kind of take it back, I think we've covered a couple of things that are massively influential for a lot of people. And, I can't speak for everyone, obviously, but I genuinely think Xbox 360 and music are probably probably two of the most influential forces in my adolescent life, hands down. So it's a shame to see the Xbox marketplace die, and it's exciting to see music continue to kind of evolve and grow larger as I grow older. And as you get more life experience, you tend to take different things from different tracks that you otherwise wouldn't have noticed. And it's just one of those things, man. It's just one of those things.
Cool. And with that, I'm gonna say that we're thank you for listening and coming back. Also, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And when you're commenting, let us know what music you're listening to.
Well, let us know what music you're listening to, and let us know if you have any influential stories from the Xbox 360 marketplace.
Yep.
Can't be the only one who's like infatuated with the arcade titles, dude. I can't. I refuse to believe that.
You're probably not. I'm sure there's somebody out there that agrees with you.
Yeah. Well, all right, y'all. Goes without saying, but thanks for listening again. This is once again the Nerds MC podcast, and we'll catch you later.